preamble of the U.S. Constitution is a very clear declaration of the Founding Fathers' stance as being directly representative of the people themselves. It makes clear that we have the foundational principle as an axiom to all things that would follow henceforth, past the Articles of Confederation, into the future of this federalized state. Democracy, democratia, the rule by people's consent, as it is implied, though not explicit in the etymology. I think even starting off, this game has some stank on it. It's got swagger and style. There's been, continually, in my experience, something of a recurring theme of games that have non-conventional difficulty titles being actually good and creative with their whole setting, and I expect that to be the same here. Let's see about it then. Embeds the principles to form that more perfect union. The union, of course, being the federalization, although some might interpret it differently. That's certainly how it's panned out. The establishment of justice in the particular interpretation of equality, insofar as they were willing to permit it. Ensure domestic tranquility. To allow a normalization of affairs and events. A general lack of disruption unto the ongoings of the citizenry. Provide for the common defense. That there is a continuity of protection maintained of this state and its peoples. Promote the general welfare. That there is not to be an especial division amongst the various peoples hereunder, that the intent is to increase the flourishing, in whatever form that might be espoused, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Again, making reference that this is not just for the individual under the regime of the time, but also all that proceed and succeed thereafter, in the way of maximizing one's capacity for autonomy. Do ordain this Constitution for the United States of America. And that's rather self-explanatory, I think. Fight necrosis of the internal organs, with the exception of the brain. The victim continues to animate and exhibit a low order of sentience for weeks or even months after clinical death. Posthumous brain activity in the possessed is limited to instinctive behavior. Possessed are known to be territorial when confronted by the living. When isolated, they will often enter a dormant state for extended periods of time. Will stand unmoving for days or weeks at a time until presented with a live food source or threatened by a predator. So these are actually demon zombies. That's crazy. Not only does it literally put a hole in their head, it also cuts their dang-a-lang off. How unfortunate for them. While giving them the goop hands. Yikes. We have the formation and foundation of the most important branch in which the Founding Fathers were arguably already acting as under the Articles of Confederation within the First Constitutional Convention. And besides declaring that it shall not be a unicameral system, that is to say, of one house, but rather a bicameral system, that there will not only be a house of the Senate on one side, but also a house of the representatives, and those will be clarified in their function and form. What do we got here? From my cold dead hands. More accurately, yours. Section 2 besets, by which the House of Representatives' representatives come to take their positions, and exactly how the proportionality of that House of Congress is divided, ranging from who exactly is able to fill such a position to by what manner, in the case of someone not filling the appropriate place, shall they acquire someone to fill that role. As was touched on earlier, it's also important to take note of the 3/5 compromise, which, and I quote, representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. So when you might have ever heard that reference, that is the explicit portion within the second section that declares all such peoples to be worthy of merely 3/5 of a human being for their representative power and apportionment, in addition to any taxes that are to be yielded to them or levied upon them. Your ammo sucks, bud. Get wrecked. The first two paragraphs generally covered the function and order of the Senate, much in a similar fashion as the House of Representatives, and I think that they did know, having already in Section 2 taken their time to lay out their particulars, therefore, took the implications of that, and, assuming the clarity therefrom, moved through the Senate with a little bit of comparative ease. The third paragraph, on the other hand, makes the first introduction that there is a vice president, and that they have an exact stated role in breaking any kind of votes that might happen in the case of a tied Senate. Not only that, but in the fifth paragraph paragraph following that they will have a basically temporary placeholder for the VP in the case that they are indisposed for the time, the pro tempore, literally translating to for the time. The sixth paragraph making it clear that the Senate has the ability to impeach anybody, and that it requires not just a simple majority, but a supermajority of 2/3. And the seventh making it clear that this is not a criminal conviction, but simply a civil one, whereby you're not allowed to hold office anymore, and you can very readily be disbarred from possessing any position of official authority. I don't want to miss any good pickups or any such. Oh. What's good, homie? Section 4 is actually relatively simple. It simply defines that there must be, in every state, some definition for the election of legislators, whereabouts that can happen, that the Congress itself can alter the laws that they set, and that the Congress itself must meet at least once a year, offering a standard date to begin with, but keeping the door open in case they decide to change it in the future. Ah. I see. A pathway that has a slightly too high wall. My darnest enemy. Section 5 asserts the base functions of the Congress, being that there is at least a quorum composed of more than 50% of each house, by which the elections, returns, and qualifications of its own members, that being how the individual is put there, how those votes were calculated, and whether they're actually fit to hold that position. But also that there can be numbers less than a full quorum, where they can conduct smaller legislative discussions, and, if there's something significant enough to warrant it, they can assemble more members of each house, such that there is at least more tension, if not the constitution of a proper quorum. The second paragraph says that they can determine the decorum that they expect out of their members and what can be done if they don't meet that. The third paragraph states that not only do they need to keep a journal of their ongoings, but also that they can keep certain parts secret from the public, that a 1/5 vote can get everyone's fors or against recorded for that journal, and that at some unspecified rate, this must be released to the public. And the fourth paragraph says that neither house can just adjourn for more than 3 days without the other house's permission to do so. Yeah, well, to be in the army, but to be armless. It's not a fate I would wish for. I think we'll be able to beat that too. Section 6, first paragraph, states that unless you're doing treason, felony, or you're disrupting the peace, you can't get arrested, at least not while you're in session and when you're going to and from for said session. The second paragraph saying that no congressman can get any kind of position that recently just got promoted in terms of its emoluments, that being a sort of piece of language of the time that came by corruption of Old French through Middle English, originating in Latin, meaning literally an instrument of grinding up, a sort of euphemism as to profits or means of gain. And in the second paragraph makes it all the more clear that you cannot hold 2 or more offices while being a part of the Congress. Grenade, hello. Ah, it does have its own entry. That's an interesting design. That can't be right. I have to look this up. That's... Alright, this is a little bit sus. The frag grenade here is said to have an effective fatality radius of about 5 meters. And it's an improvement on the M67 grenade. I just looked it up. The effective lethality radius is like 15 meters, but it could go out to like 100 meters for the effective casualty range. This being a defensive grenade, you expect it to be something that will deal a lot of damage in a lot of space. Despite all the technobabble here and the supposed improvements, especially with the fact that steel alloy cases are kind of like standard, yeah, no. Unless, of course, you're looking at something like an armor piercer, which I would rather expect for this to have, given that we're fighting, I don't know, fucking demons or something. The fact that it has whatever weird kind of trigger mechanism this is to engage the fuse? Yeah, no. I don't think this one passes muster. The design team could have been a little bit more informed before they decided to put something down here. Though I will say, it does look very sci-fi. That grenade even feels weak. Not impressed. Section 7's first paragraph lays out that all bills regarding revenue have to come from the House of Representatives, but the Senate can make commentary on whatever those bills might happen to be. The second paragraph is wherefrom we get the process of coming through one house with a simple majority, going to the other house, getting through with another simple majority, and then coming to the president, where they can do what we now today call veto, or sign, and alternatively, passing it back through to the original house that it came from, and now demanding a 2/3 supermajority for each house to push it through, regardless of whether the president signed it or not. And the third paragraph discerns that, except for in matters of adjournment, every single bill has to be put in front of the president. Another addition in the concourse of checks and balances. This is some good... Oh. Don't do that again. Same goes to you. And your buddies, too! beginning with granting themselves the right to all things taxes and adjacent, paying back debts, funding general defensive measures, whatever they consider to be the best for the people. But whatever they decide must be uniform across the entire U.S. To borrow money on behalf of the United States, work on any kind of trade with anybody that is not recognized as the first party, figure out how immigration works, which also has to be uniform, make a federal money, determine its value, choose what we use for our standard metrics, what laws are applicable for counterfeiting, get ourselves some post offices, accelerate scientific development, issue patents and copyrights, set up lower courts to the Supreme, set who are pirates, who's breaking international law, and what to do about it, issuing letters of marque and reprisal, which are effectively letters that allow you to pirate against a specific target, and institute what you're allowed to do with that. Alongside that, form armies, but they can't take money for those conflicts for more than 2 years tops. And to complement that, have a naval force, which does not have any limitations for time, going to show how important a navy is, levy militias, and put down any domestic or foreign interferences, regulating whatever state militias are actually summoned, setting up a seat of government as a district, not a state, hence where we get Washington, D.C., setting up really whatever kind of military structures that might be required, and finally, to take whatever kind of activities are necessary to get all this done. Hello? Oh. I think I'll take some explosives, thanks. I see now why there's the, weapons self-damage option. Why do you have to do that to little buddy? My man was just giving you some free shit. What the fuck's wrong with you? You look sad now. What a son of a bitch move. Section 9, paragraph 1, uses the particular language of importation, which I think gives the meaning a little bit away. This was a compromise put into place such that in 1888, no more slaves are to be brought into the U.S. But at the same time, they can impose up to a $10 tax, at least in bringing them into the States. The second paragraph covers the writ of habeas corpus, which, also coming from Latin, almost literally translates to as a shortening of a longer phrase, having of the body, meaning you need a warrant before you can be brought for detention, unless the concerned parties are part of a rebellion or an invasion. Thereafter, a bill of attainder being a legal document that specifically negatively targets an individual or a group without any trial, subverting all due process, and an ex post facto law which can change the consequences of what was originally a legal action to make it illegal, which some might find relevant today. Exciting music? Is there like a new enemy or something I gotta deal with? Yo, you tried to kamehameha me? I don't appreciate that very much, my friend. I would prefer you doesn't. The third paragraph says that no direct tax upon individuals at a fixed rate is able to be levied except for in proportion to the population of each state, an attempt to ensure that less populous states are not being overburdened in relation to what they can reasonably contribute. Although this was later repealed, the following entry saying that no state can be taxed on their exports, including between states. The fourth paragraph saying that the government cannot preference any one state's port, nor require that any vessels jump through hoops in order to get where they're going, nor can they be required to pay any duties or fees when going to a new state by that new state. The fifth paragraph requiring some accountability, in that every single dollar and cent has to be properly recorded, in and out, that such reports have to be published, and that all transactions can only be done under the sanction of law. And in the sixth paragraph, we don't do nobility in this nation, and if any other nation wants to grant you such a title, you have to run it by Congress first. At least if you're holding office. I'll wrestle ya. Section 10's first paragraph largely explicates the exclusive control of these authorities by the Congress, such that states cannot do treaties, alliances, confederations, letters of marque and reprisal, money, bills of credit, pay anything but except in gold and silver, debt-wise, do any bills of attainder, directly conduct legal impositions on anybody without trial, make any previous act that was legal suddenly illegal, retroactively, make any laws regarding the fulfillment of contracts more difficult, nor declare anybody a noble. The second paragraph continues, in that states, even if they must charge some kind of fee on imports and exports for the fulfillment of customs, all the proceeds that come off of that belong to the Treasury. And of course, the Congress can modify those at will. And the third paragraph doubles down with preventing fees, specifically on tonnage, says that they can't keep troops or warships in times of peace, nor may they engage in direct diplomacy with any other state as parts of the United States. That power belongs to Congress. Hang on, I'll get you. Breaking a demon's jaw, being the glory kill, that absolutely evaporating them, is fucking hilarious. That's such a mundane way to go out. To be a trans-dimensional monstrosity getting put out like that, that is big disrespect. I would be very upset at myself once I got back to my home in hell. Always happy to have a Mass Effect flashback. That's actually a brilliant way to cut through the process of getting your character all suited up. What would otherwise have been, obviously, a very, very lengthy and unnecessary expenditure for animating all of that. That saves a lot of good time. Alright, tell me more. Okay, I'm here for story time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. Slave camps for everybody.
Cannot determine the cause of the demonic invasion until the Resolve satellite is brought back online.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Samuel Hayden. I'm the head of this facility. I think we can work together and resolve this problem in a way that benefits us both.
And wrapping up the introductory sequence with a display of casual disregard, while also telling us where do we need to go and for what reason, fuses the scenery itself properly and the interactive objects that are directly within it all together very nicely. Oh, yeah, of course. In addition to setting ourselves on Mars, far away from our pre-established facilities on Earth, terraforming that bad boy, and then fracking into hell? Yeah, the first thing we're gonna do is make a true general AI. God bless the UAC. While most victims exposed to Argent biowaves will expire without further effect, some subjects will absorb traces of Argent energy and enter a state of posthumous vigor. Interesting that it's Argent energy. Well, more accurately pronounced Argent. That is actually the word coming to us by way of French for silver, despite the pre-established canon in most mythos of silver being something of a curative, or at least that binds and gets rid of various maladies and spiritual ailments, even such things as curses. To have that be the name for the supposed waves that reanimate in demonic possession some of these poor individuals, I feel like that's gonna point us in some interesting directions later on. So even the most basic enemy, the very first entry that we're able to review here, has a cemented purpose within the greater order of all of the enemies to come. Not only that, but it explains why we might encounter them at any given place, doing any given thing, and confers to them some kind of activity that they might do beyond being mere bodies for us to plow through as the main character. It's a lesson that could be taken very well in many, many games that want any of their combatants to be taken seriously. Especially in determining why there might not be some there. There's always the affirmative, but the negative as well is just as important as to why they might not be in a place. They get eaten by their demonic superiors. Well, I actually get to pilot that. Is this... I keep referencing back... I guess this is starting on the trend that I began with Road Warden, referencing other games I'm not even playing right now. I hope that there is something like a nice little Mako section with that vehicle. That's a lot of bulk for a shotgun. I wonder if it does anything special, because that bore looks a lot bigger than just a mere 12 gauge. And it has an unbelievable spread, I'm sure. Titanium steel alloy. Well, that explains the coloration. Lots of exposed bolts and bits on the outside. Feels almost like something put together by Keltec. Oh, well, it holds like 20 some odd rounds, so I think that might be a benefit to this shotgun. Ah, what a beautiful summer day.
Honesty, especially now, in what will be your final moments in this world.
Mm-hmm.
The human sacrifices, the hell portal,
Mm-hmm.
demons. It's all true.
Mm-hmm.
My sisters and
Really?
thankful. You will be the first. You will have a seat alongside them, just as I will, in what will become the new world that they create for us. Starting now.
That was a cringe outro, and I think you're dumb.
Everything has clearly gotten out of hand.
Right.
But it was worth the risk. I assure you.
That was a great splash intro. The amount of attitude. It's incredible that Bethesda did this in 2016, and then just recently did Starfield. These things are incomparable. Even standing right here in the midst of just the intro zone, finally getting out of whatever kind of underground bunker that we were in. This view, this was hand sculpted. This was something that took time, effort, and boatloads of creative energy and expertise, between the framing to the effects that I'm not even maxed out on in terms of my graphics. In the middle of 2016, what happened? What happened?
Demonic presence at unsafe levels. Lockdown.
Unsafe levels of demonic presence. The question is there a safe level of demonic presence? Ooh, that's nice. That's very, very nice. And I have full axial rotation, also brilliant. Always appreciated a good 3D map, and this one definitely meets it. Also continues contributing to the style, not only in that it has this very interesting blend of scientific futurism, it also continues to remind you that you are to be in the midst of hell, with the background continuing to shoot up and kick sparks to and fro. I like that's a good juxtaposition. Hey, you know, it's very good that we all want to join into hell and, you know, become ascended creatures of, a fallen divinity. But also, you know, if you have any ideas, feel free to put them in the tip box. So we're on Mars properly, and in line with what I was saying earlier, the feature of whatever that argent material is with its waves, causing the condition of the possessed enemy type, is not simply some passive natural occasion. It had to be found specifically within a fracture, a cave, having some very immediately traceable references that could be pointing towards, perhaps Plato's cave. Specifically that it is trans-dimensional, might actually refer to the theory of forms or something adjacent thereto, as it relates to the mythos of hell, only furthered by the fact that highly technic patternation, as referenced with the fermionic transfer pattern, came about as a consequence of Earth's incredible energy demands. I think I'm seeing the pieces fall together. That is interesting. I'm curious to see how exactly that gets integrated into the gameplay. Well, since you decided to be the last one out, you'll get to be the first I test my chainsaw on. Wow, that is a surplus. Holy shit. Good googly moogly. Genetic coding? We have jumped the shark from just there's some kind of hell energy that radiates and transmutes the individual bodily, to that it more than likely contains genetic information that could give some massive credence to any kind of hellish environments that happen, whether by the gore pits or any fleshy growths that might come about later on. I'm very curious to see how that develops. And in the case of individual people, does not bode well for them. And makes me wonder, does our suit offer any kind of protection against that explicitly, or is that something of a plot hole? I just got very significant reflections of Star Trek Elite Voyager. All the various super sci-fi corridors and the little pneumatic pumps and floors and all that to navigate. This admittedly would have been a good area, especially in this corner here, to put some sort of secret. Bit of a missed opportunity, I feel. Especially if you wanted to cement the idea that there are such secrets to pick up, whether it's even something like an audiobook or log entry. In the tutorial area, that would have been a good place. Huh. That's a block. Let's see what it has to say about it. This almost has the configuration of like a bullpup insofar as its shortness and its squatness, the kind of height that it has just by virtue of cramming so much into such a small space. But it's box fed. I don't know if I'm a fan of that look. And those front sights are atrocious. Alright. How in the hell is that supposed to be a 50 cal? That looks like 308. I know the proportions are chunky, but that's like a 308 round right there. Ain't no way that's firing a 50 cal. Even if it was, you would essentially have a flamethrower. The length of that barrel, even with its flippity-doo little, I guess, expanded reinforced chamber, if that's what I'm thinking that it is, it's got only like 14 inches of barrel, tops, accurate to all distances, my asshole. You know, I just had flashbacks to playing Metro, specifically Exodus. This feels like a trap. And if it were that game, I'd be very concerned about walking in here. But seeing these guys, I feel no sense of concern, and you can see why. Oh, that's not a front sight. That's a carry handle front sight combo? What the fuck is this piece of shit? The flip-up sights in the back are obscured by the top rail, if you could call that a rail, maybe a clamp type. And there's no front sight post. It's whatever the asymmetric handle is up there, and then a little dot ringed in metal. Accurate to all distances. 50 caliber. Okay. Well, maybe it's half-inch, not... Let me actually read that. Maybe it's not 50 BMG. Maybe it's just 50 caliber generally. Yeah, okay. It does say that. My bad. But that's still unbelievable. Map data. Interesting. Ah, and it even highlights where I've been. That's appreciable. I've always felt very much like it was more of a kneecap to have an area completely mapped out and not tell you where you haven't been already than it is to get it and have it actually show you properly where you haven't been. Art thou not entertained? Turn around, get you. Oh! He smashed his own face with his foot. Hey, never let motion be wasted, I suppose. That is something I wish was more abundant in games. Being able to turn the structure of a hostile into a weapon against themselves. Terribly underutilized. Alright, what we got here? Oh! Lend a hand, buddy. Much obliged. You know, while the actual sound effect of the shotgun ain't so bad, it does feel like it's rather lacking a little bit in the performance department visually to keep it feeling like something that is actually splattering demons should. Like, that feels good. That does not feel very good, seeing the up front and close. The instantiated shot holes, that doesn't feel very good. Feels a little out of date. Honestly, kind of Half-Life 2-ish, no diss to Half-Life 2, but it is an old game, and to have that being the feel, the vibe of your shotgun, not good. Hello? That's a sweet little area to find, but... where to go, methinks. Back up to full armor. Oh no! Oh shit! Oh fuck! Ah, god damn it! That was good. That was really good. Cycle begins anew, so this is cyclic. If there is any parallel with what I was saying earlier about the finding of this otherworldly dimension of patternations and the fact that we can somehow scientifically align it with our reality, and in that, perhaps some correlation to Plato's cave, that this is cyclic. It might make the Doom guy something of the individual who actually got out of the cave and then went to free everybody else. That'd be a very interesting twist on the story if this is the interpretation that we're coming to here. Alright, what we got on dinner tonight? We got bubbly and cheesy mac. And then we can top it off with a nice delicious whipping of fire retardant cream. That's absolutely Doom dinner. Something I haven't taken note of yet, but these arenas have made some good efforts at verticality, not only with the enemies, as in this imp here, taking to the pillars, but also just the navigable space for the player. The engageability of the enemies from height to height, even though there is a significant impetus to get up close and personal, particularly with the weapons that we have at our disposal at the moment, the shotgun namely, there is nonetheless a good lot that you can do with this space, and they surely do. Oh, there's no risk to me. Worry not. He sounded confused. Waiting on the elevator simulator. That is a nice break. For a normal player who's just going through this, to go through something so mundane as waiting for the elevator and then riding up into the area while following this ghost vision, presumably generated by the AI of the facility, does well for giving us a little bit of a breather, putting some of the gravity and severity of the situation into context. Oh. Now, why would something approximately the size of, like, a laser aiming module being attached to a section of rail allow you to go from this to this? That's a burst. That's wild. From a regular-ass expulsion of lead to 3-round burst. That's wild. I know that a lot of games don't take much time to really explain why their things work like they do and they just want it to play like they want it to play, but there are better ways to do it. I am enjoying this. As low-key as the experience has felt, like, I think the music really does a lot of the heavy lifting for those that are particularly affected by it. Imagine if I played this without the music. The actual engagements themselves are not kicking yet. Like, and I felt this, like I was talking about earlier with Metro. It really felt like every little engagement was positively life-threatening, even whenever I was rocking through them on, like, a good setup or something. Or something else that I had played within the last year, God of War. There were a number of moments that genuinely had me, like, on the edge of my seat. Playing Doom, though, so far? Not at all. I think it's been more annoying than anything, perhaps just because of the shotgun's really, really hampered range, and its very finite ammunition. Yeah, see what I was mentioning earlier. This does not feel like heart-pounding, muscle-straining action. Now that ba-da-bup isn't blasting in my ears. It hasn't been as exciting as I think that it ought to have been, and I don't think that if I wasn't doing commentary on that, I would have a different opinion. Obviously, analyzing something, it does deflate it a little bit. It can, anyway, unless it's continuing to impress the entire time, which we have had happen, especially in some cases of, like, Bioshock, for instance, and Road Warden, both of these. Not that the gameplay is too static, but rather that the impressed tone, what is being driven at, is not matching the gameplay loop that we've been introduced to thus far. And the interactions along the path of the story, as entertaining as some of them have been, are not profoundly in line with that ultra-violence, that blood-pumping, high-octane, explosive experience. The feel, visual, mechanic, and in terms of damage, not to mention range, and the monotonicity of effective meta, it feels a little hollow, in the same way that the weapon designs are themselves very cool on the surface. Their expression is interesting, but the content, the depth, does not feel like it matches that pretense. I haven't had a bad time. I look forward to coming back to it, but it does leave me feeling in the same way as having drank a soda. Like, it was alright, it was very refreshing in the moment, but it doesn't feel like it left me with anything substantial. Thank you for attending. If you think it's worth promoting and perhaps seeing more of in the future, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Share us around. We have Instagram, X, an entire Discord set up to our name, the Threefold at a Factory, and we're working on getting things put out to BitChute and TikTok for those that are interested. If you think it might be worth money, we have one-time donations that can be made at whatever amount that you might desire through Stream Elements, with the link in the description, alongside Patreon for those who might want a little bit back for whatever money they might throw into the pot in terms of benefits, and at a very nice starting rate of a mere $5 per month. With a slew of benefits, including the ability to vote in any channel polls, getting your name here at the end of the video, and some benefits in our Discord, not to mention helping to keep this going. And without further ado, I hope that you never miss your opportunities.